Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the Hazards of the Old Ones, Part 1, Chapter 8, The Naked Countess. So, in our previous chapter, we met the dastardly House of Xandar. We met King Hezru and his wife Xanthippe, and their children, who didn't really interact much except for one, and we'll get to her in a second. King Hezru mentions to Captain Davidge that his previous encounters with their eldest daughter, Princess Marlith, made the House of Xandar quite a bit of money. Now, the House of Xandar, former Vith household that lived in the frigid north near Xandar Bay, and they left with several other Vith households to become Zaffins during the Great Betrayal. The Xandars were one of the larger, more notable families to leave, and they settled on a hot, arid world they named after themselves. They named it Xandar. That's a common trait in the League and in the Zaffin Armada. If a family founds a planet, settles a planet, the planet's usually named after them. The Bloodsteins did it, the Conwells did it, the Xandars did it. One of the notable exceptions is the planet Tremble, which was founded by the House of Savar, but they never named the planet after themselves. I guess vanity only goes so far in certain households. Xandars were typical hedonists, living a life of luxury off the backs of their subjects. They waged war with their Zaffin counterparts and with the League on occasion, what they usually lost. They had lots of money, they had lots of friends. But then came the wedding, where it was brought about in League society and posh circles within the Zaffin Armada that enough is enough. We've been fighting at each other's throats for centuries. Let's bury the hatchet with a wedding, of all things. And of all the eligible Zaffins who were suitably well-known and suitably wealthy, Princess Marlith of Xandar was chosen to be the Zaffin portion of this wedding, so she needed a groom. I guess she could have had a wife as well, but in this story it was a groom, and there were several grooms trotted out that had to compete for her, and she became a celebrity in the League as she toured about selecting her grooms, and she eventually picked our hero, Captain Davidge. And in my mind, she genuinely liked Captain Davidge. They Zen-la'd, their minds linked together, which means that they were in love. They grew to love each other. But Marlith, being a Zaffin princess, was not on the same moral heading as Captain Davidge. He being much softer, I guess, more inclined to have liberal sentiments, to be a nice guy, while Princess Marlith was much more hedonistic, much more selfish and self-absorbed, and was eager to take her new husband and expand their wealth. One thing led to another, and the wedding never happened because Captain Davidge's elder sister, Pardock, Lady Pardock, stopped the wedding when she received the baton into her little ham-like fists. Instead of passing it on, she threw it to the ground, and according to Vith tradition, when that happens, there is no wedding. There is nothing. So that was the end. Captain Davidge never saw Princess Marlith again in person, but he would see her on the battlefield many times as she took up arms against the League, and particularly against Captain Davidge, and a lot of nuisance attacks. A lot of things that would get his attention and bring him running in his fleet ship, the Seeker, and they duked it out in space a lot over the next 80 years. And their stories, they're the tales of these two embittered lovers who loved, and they fought in the cold, naked embrace of space, captured the imaginations of people in Zaffin society. Bards told the stories, money flowed in, and the House of Xandar needed money because the Black Hats had taken almost everything. There was an incident known as the Triumph Affair, where Princess Marlith, once again seeking to be a pest, get Captain Davidge's attention, came up with this idea involving Black Hats to infiltrate the League and attack Captain Davidge, and the Black Hats agreed. But it went south, it went sour, and a lot of Black Hats ended up getting killed. And the House of Xandar's name became mud after that, and they had a lot of their assets stripped from them because of the Black Hats. Usually what the Black Hats want, other Zaffin households acquiesce to, so the House of Xandar became paupers. And even Baron Camilla of Sorander, a notable Zaffin warlord, made a claim on the planet Xandar itself. She claimed planet Xandar belonged to her, and it was being squatted upon by the House of Xandar, and she would pay any warlord dearly who would bring her fiefdom to her. So a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes like that. House of Xandar became paupers, but then with all this Captain Davidge, Princess Marla stuff, they built their wealth back up again. However, when Sig showed up, Sig and Princess Marla clashed aboard the Triumph vessel that she had appropriated along with her allies, the Fanatics of Nulls, and Sig put every single one of them on a spit and nearly lost her mind in the process. And apparently Princess Marla lost her life too, because she was not seen again after that horrific event. House of Xandar wants to continue the hostilities. There's no Marlith anymore, but they have the 11th daughter of the House of Xandar, this little skinny, kind of plain, mannish looking girl named Princess Rock. They want Captain Davidge to continue fighting the House of Xandar with Rock, and Davidge was suitably disgusted by this notion. He's like, I'm not going to do this. And they said, well, you are going to do it because we're going to make you one way or another. Whatever that means is not yet known. So there we are. We are at chapter 8, The Naked Countess, and we get to the whole meat of this entire first part of the book. Remember, this is called the Sisters Program, and we are going to find out what the Sisters Program is, and we're going to find out hard in the next 2 chapters. I haven't decided if I'm going to read 2 chapters tonight or just one, because this one is a short 4 pages, and there's a large illustration in the book, and the last page only is like a few lines in 1 page, so actually it's more like 3 pages. It's pretty short. And then the next chapter after that is called The Sisters Program, of all things, chapter 9. And that's where the reality of the Sisters Program is driven home to our heroine, Countess Sigillis. I had to turn off all of the fans here in my office. It's hot and stuffy, but if I turn them on, the mic will pick up all of that noise. Isn't that delightful? So I am willing to sit here and sweat it out for you, to create content for you. How lovely is that? In any event, let's proceed immediately. Part 1, Chapter 8, The Naked Countess. Davidge dropped Kylos off at the village docks by the bay near the Seeker. The frontal section of the ship towered over the huddled buildings lining the dock. Kylos bounced out of the Ripcar and, always thirsty, begged Dav to come have a drink with her at one of the pubs. She said it was honey ale night at the Drunken Eel, something not to be missed. Smiling, he gave in and had a glass or two, clapping shoulders with the locals and some of his crew who were there. He was enjoying the fellowship and had a mind to call up to the castle and have Sig come down and join him. He missed her so. She'll no doubt climb into her sedate little green rip car and come blundering down the mountain road. Sig was a terrible pilot, but usually didn't trouble the staff to fly her down. She liked to do things herself, even when she was terrible at a thing. Her green rip car was battered with dozens of little dents. David certainly hoped that their son, growing within her, didn't inherit her piloting skills one little bit. He went outside to call Sig when he saw the ship parked at the far end of the bay. The small Vith ship was a sister ship, no doubt about it. A few Marines were posted in front of it, standing guard. The sisters were here. No announcement, no contingent. Without question, they were up at the castle. There was nothing in his village that otherwise interested them. He could guess what they wanted, and he knew his Countess wasn't going to take it well in the least. He put his glass down, said bye to Kylos and his crew, and blasted the rip car up toward the castle, hauling it skyward in a steep climb to clear the mountain shelf. He maneuvered through the myriad of spires and towers of the castle, clearing its colossal width, and lowered towards the vast green maze of the Telmus Grove. Ahead, the old Vith chapel rose out of the tangle of trees. He knew the sisters were there, waiting. He knew they will not see Sig. He knew that fact would enrage her. Oh, creation. Lowering the skids and chopping the power, he dropped the rip car like a rock and tore into the waiting chapel. He knew exactly what the sisters wanted, but he had no idea what he was going to say. Not this time, now that he was married. Lieutenant Kylos entered her quarters aboard the Seeker and took off her red marine coat and her gun belt. Outside, through her windows, were the carnival lights of the village, the black bulk of the mountains, and the massive spired castle high above. The bright northern stars twinkled beyond. In a few days, they will blast off on a new tour, the Seeker howling out of the bay and into the clear air, heading off to who knows where. A new tour. She loved setting out fresh. She enjoyed hanging out in the village, visiting Dav's castle and whatnot during these down times, but soaring the stars was her favorite. To set sail towards parts unknown, it gave her chills of anticipation. She sat down at her desk and sorted through the bursar's notes. As a first officer, it was her responsibility to keep up on ship happenings, deal with any crew situations that might crop up, and otherwise command the docked vessel. As usual, Dav's crew was well behaved. The only incident of note was a crewman had failed to compensate a courtesan for a night's work, and she was handing the bill to the fleet, a matter easily taken care of. She then thought she'd catch up on her marine mail, freshen up, and see if Dav and Sig were up for some breakfast. The sun will be rising soon. Kai being the consummate night owl, sleep was for the weak, for the timid. Sleep was for nobodies, and Kai loved the pancakes they served up at the castle with that awesome Nadine syrup they made. Oh, feature, that was some eating. She was a Marine, of course. She wore a Marine uniform and carried a Marine SK. She went to all of the various 12th Marine Division functions, but as Dav's first officer, she had little contact with Stellar Marine Command itself. She was fortunate that her high position on a main fleet vessel of the line was greatly prized by the Marines. It gave them a great deal of prestige, and they allowed her all the leash she wanted. They hoped she would groom other Marines to become first officers in the fleet as well. They'd sent a few officers her way, whom they hoped she'd train up, but with her gruff nature and dour demeanor, they went away generally unassisted. There was talk about a disciplinary action against her, that a high-ranking Marine commandant wanted her head for her attitude. But again, her standing aboard the Seeker was a bulletproof shield, protecting her from attack. Still, there was paperwork that needed done, her debriefs for her commander back at the Marine Station 0 Foxtrot on Ogilvy, and she, as usual, let it back up. She hadn't seen her Marine commander face to face in years. Dav was all the commander she wanted. Relaxing at her terminal, she logged in and began sorting through her Marine to-do box. 200 plus items. Good creation. She'd finished a few items. One must have been a bit of whammick. Junk mail. It was just a pair of red animated cat's eyes on a black screen that seemed to follow her around when she stood up from her terminal to get her mug. She was a little too tipsy from the pub binge to be startled or overly interested. She closed it and had more whammick in her list. A message, supposedly from her commander, said, "Stay at your post. Do not make me come for you. M." Actually, it might have been from her Marine commander after all. She heard the man hated her for her insubordinate attitude and her immunity from persecution under Dav's wing. He was a major, too. M for major. "Sour Joe-boy," she said. She finished a few more messages when a League comm screen popped up. She had an incoming message from the University of Tusk. Ah, her husband. Smiling, she ran a hand through her hair and opened the comm. There on the screen was her husband in his office at the old university, midday back on Onaris. He wore his usual academician's robes and scholarly hat. He was a handsome fellow, but small, a good foot shorter than she was. He was sig-sized. His office was the usual clutter of stonework, artifacts and documents scattered about. In the background was an angelic, brown-eyed painting of Kylos. He'd done it himself. He was a good painter. He was good at everything he did. His skills as a researcher were demonic, legendary. There was nothing that was beyond his reach. No secret whose mysteries he could not fathom. His whole office was lit up in whitish, silvery light. "Hi, darlin'," she said happily. Before she could get 2 more words out, he interrupted. He said with a solemn, serious voice, "Come home, Kai." Sig had been struggling for what seemed like hours and getting nowhere. Time was wrapped around her in a blanket, in a vortex, moving it at a sprint. She might, with considerable effort, make it to the chapel eventually, but it'll take days. By then the sisters will be gone, and Dav will probably be in a lather, wondering where she was. She was frothing mad. By the elders, she was going to see the sisters whether they liked it or not. And she was not helpless, not at all. She allowed her silver tech to flow out of her hands, hitting the stony ground, bouncing up and coating her in a film of silver. The grip of time accelerated around her tiny body, began to slip, to lose its hold. She let it grab onto the silver like a banana being squirted out of its peel. She could feel herself moving. "You won't want to do that, Countess," Carahill said, floating on air, his silver tech body immune to the time warp. She ignored him. A little more, and with a rip, she was free and hurtled towards the waiting chapel, toppling to the ground with a thud. There she was. She had made it. She was also naked, her gown ripped away along with her silver tech, locked in time, hanging there in effigy. "Carahill, bring me my gown, please," she said, picking herself up. I got it! Carahill cried as he seized the gown in his mouth like a life-size anthropomorphic kite and flew off with it, disappearing behind the stand of trees. Sig fumed. Obviously, Carahill wanted her to follow him. Obviously, Carahill, like Poe, like the sisters, didn't want her going in there. Well, too bad. She didn't care. She will settle with him over this gown and the pie thing later. By creation, he better not lose or damage it. She was going to see the sisters, stark naked if need be. Who cares? She wiped the dirt from her face, hauled back, and kicked the door open with her dirty bare foot. Boom! The door flew open with a heavy wooden thud. She charged in. Inside, as she recalled from her wedding, there was a large, ornate vestibule. Sitting properly on 3 little couches were the sisters, each flanked by a Marine. Sig recalled their faces from dinner yesterday. Standing in front of them was Dav, her husband, his hat off, his coppery card glinting at his side. Dav! Her heart fluttered. 3 sisters? Weren't there 4? She had seen 4 at the docks. All faces turned to her immediately. Sig, standing there, naked and dirty, bowed with all the courtesy she'd been taught. And with that, we conclude Part 8, The Naked Countess. So we see Sig's solution to escaping the sisters' time warp. However they're doing that, because again, we never see the sisters affecting time ever again, was to coat herself in silver tech, and she sort of like squirted through the time warp, leaving her gown and her silver tech behind. And then Carahil, trying to get her to follow him, steals her gown and flies off with it. She doesn't care. Sig couldn't care less about these things, whether she's fully clothed, shoed, or stark naked. When she's on a roll, and nothing is going to stop her, and nudity is the least of her worries. And she barges in, and there's the sisters. So now, that is the end of Chapter 8. We go to Chapter 9, the Sisters Program, and we're going to find out exactly what the sisters want. And oh boy, there's going to be fireworks, let me tell you. Let's proceed right now. And I want you to think about something as we read this chapter. A bit of homework as you listen. There is a ridiculous test to see if a work, whether it be a book, a movie, a TV show, whatever, is feminist or not. And it's called the Bechtel Test. And it's based off of a artist in the 60s or 70s. Her name was Bechtel. I can't recall her first name. And she put in a little comic strip that she had written as a joke, a test where 2 women were discussing like fixing a car or something like that, if my memory serves. And it's the Bechtel test is supposed to be, it has a few criteria. You have 2 women and they're talking about having a conversation where they talk back and forth, and they can't be talking about men. And it's a ridiculous test, but it's the gold standard that modern feminists use when determining if a work is feminist or not. I want you to consider that as we proceed with this next chapter. Let's do it right frickin' now. Chapter 9, The Sisters Program. I beg your forgiveness for my tardy arrival, esteemed sisters. However, it seems I became engulfed in some sort of time vortex in the grove. Most inconvenient. Strange I'd not encountered one of those there previously. Davidge regarded her with a broad smile. Countess Blanchford. Well met, and good evening. Sig looked at Dav and burst into a smile as well. Captain Davidge, my lord. I am pleased that you are returned safely to your castle at last. It appears I have misplaced my gown in my haste to arrive here and attend honored guests in our home. The love that passed between them warmed the room. Quickly, Davidge took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. She touched his hand as he put it around her, savoring his feel, wishing they were alone. The Marines appeared both amused and touched by this display. The sisters were nonplussed and inscrutable as ever. They began speaking through the Marines. Lord Blanchford, we will allow you to escort your Countess back to the castle. Spend a moment with her in reunion as you will, and then return when you can. We will await your arrival. Esteemed sister, Sig said, I have come all this way to humbly serve you and attend to your every need. I have even lost my clothing in my zeal. My lord is no doubt tired and hungry from his important league meetings to the south, and shan't be further disturbed tonight. Please, To the castle, Lord Blanchford. I will happily serve the sisters here as best I can. Countess Blanchford, you misunderstand. Our business here is with Lord Blanchford, and Lord Blanchford alone. You cannot assist us in this matter. He will escort you in safety back to the castle, and he will return here at his convenience. We assure you there will be no further time entanglements along the way. Sig wiped the dirt from her nose. Great sister, Lord Blanchford will return to the castle at once and be refreshed, and I will attend you here. We can bandy this topic about all night if need be, yet the outcome will be the same, Sig said, the long tails of Dav's coat dragging on the floor. There was a fierce standoff for a moment, the sisters stiff, immovable, sitting on their couches, and Sig, proud, naked, draped in a fleet coat that was far too big for her. Davidge and the Marines were forgotten for the time being. They looked around at each other, incredulous. Finally, one of the sisters smiled a bit. Great Countess, a Marine said, it is obvious you love your lord very much, and such a display truly warms our hearts. We forget that Lord Blanchford is no longer an esteemed bachelor, and has the love of his wife, the great Countess, to consider. Thank you, great sister, and should you wish to speak to me in private, recall I can hear your thoughts without the need of a Marine interpreter. The sister went on, the Marine speaking for her. That is true, and thank you, yet not all in attendance can communicate in such a fashion. For Lord Blanchford's sake, we will continue to speak through our Marines, with their kind permission, of course. Countess, you are still new to League society, so we will understand your lack of knowledge in this area. Be it known, we wish to pay the Lord Blanchford one of the highest compliments we of the sisterhood can offer. Be it known that he, and by proximity you as well, are well favored and beloved by us. Thank you, great sister. I appreciate your compliments, and I am flattered that you find my husband worthy. He is, of course, a great elder, and I am not afraid to say it. None is as proud of him as I. Indeed, and we wish to suitably honor him by having him participate in our program. I see. And what is your program? Can you be a bit more specific? The sisters looked at each other for a moment. We can say no further. That is for Lord Blanchford alone. Sig, allowing Dav's coat to come open, strode forward. The sisters watched her with muted interest. I am most concerned by the secrecy concerning this honor you wish to perform upon my husband. We took an oath together, he and I, on the day of our wedding. Our hands held the wedding baton, and we became as one. We have, and maintain no secrets. I have shared all the sordid details of my horrendous past as a black hat hammer, and he loves me still. He has forgiven me the things I did in a past life. Certainly I can hear and stomach any honor the sisters might wish to effect upon him. Certainly such an honor will warm my heart. Davidge came forward. Sisters, please allow me a moment alone with my Countess. A sister stirred. No, no, Lord Blanchford. Your Countess raises an excellent point, and we should not hesitate in sharing with her the honor of our program. Certainly none of our exploits should give a black hat pause. I am no longer a black hat, she replied. Indeed. Sisters, please, Davidge said. Sig looked up at him and winked. It's okay, Dav, she whispered. How bad can it be? How much money can they possibly want? Lord Blanchford, we insist. Countess, no doubt you have heard of the term programmability used in various social circles. Programmability is a measure of a gentleman's worth and status in the League. Programmability itself is derived from a gentleman's participation in our time-honored program. We wish your husband to participate in our program today and further enhance his already impressive programmability. Yes, thank you, you have said that. our mating program. Sig's eyes flared, her mouth dropped open. We have been blessed with a miracle, hence our haste. A sister of great esteem, who was not due her time for several more years, has come into sudden fruit, and requires proper seating. Such things happen. We do not question the elder's plan. It is a gift we cherish. We have determined that Lord Blanchard's programmability is high in this case, which is a great honor. He is an ideal candidate to seed our sister and create a fine, strong girl-child offspring. We apologize for the alacrity of these proceedings. However, speed is of the essence, lest our sister's unexpected time be missed. Fear not. You will not miss your husband. He will simply be gone one night, and return to you in the morning, harmed not in the least. Nothing more will be said or need done, and a grand dowry we shall pay in thanks. Sig stood there, speechless. You see, Countess, perhaps it was best not to inform you of the details regarding this matter. Rest assured, it is a common practice throughout the League, and is greatly appreciated by the— "I forbid it!" Sig shrieked at last. Davidge gently touched Sig by the shoulder. She was trembling in rage. "Sig, come outside with me for a moment. My husband will rest in the arms of no other. I forbid it, not whilst I live and draw breath." Clearly you are unprepared for this information. Our program is purely voluntary. And has he yet agreed to this act of adultery? He has not, as of yet, agreed. We await his answer still, and allow us to correct you, to seed a sister to engage in the time-honored practice of programmability is not adultery. The sisterhood does not recognize the bonds of marriage. Forgive me, but I do not recall our marriage vows to one another being waived, circumvented, countermanded, or otherwise postponed simply because the Sisterhood of Light has a bitch in heat requiring a stud. The sisters appeared stunned, and so did the Marines, and so did Davidge. Sig composed herself a bit. I am sorry, sisters, that was most uncalled for of me, she said in a quiet, hurried voice. However, you must understand, I will not see my husband in the arms of another, not even a sister. Certainly you understand that. Certainly that fact is most plain. Another sister spoke, via Marine. It is most obvious to us how the Countess Blanchford feels regarding this matter. Her thoughts are most clear, and we thank her for her candor. And so, how does Lord Blanchford feel? All eyes turned to Davidge. Sig's eyes burned green in their wide, disbelieving sockets as she gazed at him. He stood there for a moment and rubbed his forehead. "Sisters," he said finally, "clearly I am in a most distressing position. I am certain, as my past actions have shown, I have been willing and honored to participate in your program many times. 7 times you have come to me, and 7 times I have gladly accepted. You have bestowed the programmability of Magni upon me, which has opened many doors in the fleet and League at large. I can think of no other lord who has participated so much in my generation." "That is true," a Marine said. "Your fine Blanchford blood has done us proud many times in the past, and you have earned your Magni ranking. Yes, that is true. And I am deeply honored and flattered you have come again on this urgent occasion seeking my help. However, as my Countess has put it, I am no longer single, and I have her feelings to consider in the matter as well. She is my Zen-La, and I shall not harm or diminish her so. And so, what do you suggest?" "Yes, Lord Blanchford," Sig said in a tart voice. "What do you suggest? I recall the time-honored custom of perlance, one that the sisterhood has afforded to married lords often in the past. Per the perlance, I will gladly open my home to you as you need it, and offer a compensatory dowry for your inconvenience here today. I offer it willingly, as I heartily wish to maintain and perpetuate the open friendship with the sisterhood my family has enjoyed over the centuries. Sig looked at Dav and beamed with happiness. As usual, Dav appeared to have a knack for talking himself out of a tight situation. The sisters silently chattered amongst themselves for a moment. A third sister began speaking, the Marine. "Perlance is your right to claim, Lord Blanchford. However, this situation is a bit different than most. Our sister has specifically requested you for her program. She was most adamant about your particular participation and will accept no other. Our sister's fertile period must not be missed, and no other candidates have been matched. We are afraid that Perlance is regrettably denied, though you are certainly within your rights to request it." Sig instantly regained her previous fury. "Denied? Denied? Sister, you come here claiming to offer my husband a great honor. You claim it is purely voluntary. It, however, does not appear voluntary to me. Rather, it seems most compulsory to me. Consider it as you will. Sisters, you claim to be so good, so pure without sin. You come, polite, smiling, offering endless choice. Yet you do not offer choice. There is no choice other than the one you have pre-selected. You have run roughshod over the League, over fine men like my husband, since time immemorial, and that is over in this particular household. You claim to allow freedom, yet you take it away when you hear the word no. I say no. Let your bitch find a stud in some other pasture." Unacceptable. There was a silence for a moment. Sig and the sisters faced each other relentlessly. A Marine, "This exchange is unproductive and pointless. Countess, if you choose to impede us, if you choose to so inconvenience Lord Blanchford and trouble his thoughts, then we will be forced to simply take what we want. Have you any illusions that we could not pass your time, the seating done and gone at the blink of an eye?" Davidge faced the sisters. "Should you do that, sister, then of course we are powerless to prevent it. However, you may be certain that the friendship of the House of Blanchford and the sisterhood will be henceforth at an end. You will no longer be welcome here. I will give you no further ear. I will entertain you not, nor shall any future lords of Blanchford. Finally, I will make it generally known what was taken here by force before the League ex-Commons, and how we are all slaves before the sisterhood." The sisters looked amongst themselves and appeared pained. "Forgive us, Lord Blanchard. Forgive us, Countess. We sincerely apologize for suggesting such a thing. We are your friends and are grateful for your counsel. We do not wish to endanger our standing with you. That is not our desire." "Then why not display your good intentions and leave at once?" Sig said. The sisters sat silent for a moment. Finally, a Marine said, "Countess, our sister has informed us that she knows you well, that she anticipated a scene such as this. She anticipated your pride and your haunting of Lord Blanchford's thoughts, forcing him into a very awkward situation. Lord Blanchford, our sister offers her apologies for the contretemps that have been made here this day, both by our presence and by the actions of your Countess. Additionally, Countess, our sister wishes to distress him no further and offers you sport." It was Davidge's turn to be enraged. "No sport will be accepted, not whilst I am lord here." Sig turned to him and put her hand on his shoulder. "It's all right, Dav." She turned to the sisters. "I will hear this sport. Our sister offers a contest with you to settle this matter. Any contest you so choose. Just you and she." "You are saying that the sister wants to fight? Is that it? If that is the contest you so wish, she will meet you. You may select terms." "Is no one listening? There will be no terms. I will not allow it," Davidge said. "My lord," Sig said, calming him down. "My lord, I do not see any other way around this issue. Clearly the sisters will not accept no as an answer, and clearly I will not accept yes as an answer either. I will meet this sister. I will fight her and defeat her clean." "Then state your terms," a sister said. "I will fight the sister with the strength of my arm against the strength of hers. No weapons, no gifts, no silver tech, no TK, No illegal black hat gifts or hyper gifts, just the two of us, woman to woman. Our sister will agree. Davidge spun Sig around, his coat hopelessly big on her. Countess Blanchford, may I remind you, you are carrying our child. Our child is as a seed at the moment and will not be harmed. She turned to the sisters. I will further ask that the sister refrain from intentionally striking my belly. Or does the unborn life of our child also mean nothing to the sisterhood? Our sister cherishes your unborn child and will gladly avoid harming him. However, your face and your limbs will be fair targets. Fine, as will hers. Then it is done and bound. When you are soundly defeated, you will trouble Lord Blanchford no further regarding this matter. Sig was defiant. I will expect no further dalliances when I have won, and you will not come to our home with your program ever again. Not until our son is born and comes of age, then he may deal with you as he chooses. Agreed. And where shall this humiliating short-lived battle take place? Cara Hill's Walk in the Telmus Grove. Sunset 2 days hence on the full moons. Done and bound. Davidge and Sig lay in bed, their arms tightly wrapped around each other. Outside, the stars hung bright in the northern horizon. Sig, I will not allow this. It's already done. My marriage vows to you are the most important words I have ever spoken, and yours to me are the sweetest I have ever heard. You will rest in the arms of no other. You will not fight a sister. I will fight the sister, and I will win. Sig, you cannot face a sister. She is strong. I'm strong. You are, but you're not as strong as I am, even without the gift of strength. However, I am in no way as strong as a sister, even at full strength. Strength is strength. I know how to fight. I've been in lots of fights, Dav, with people a lot bigger than I am, and I won. You've also taught me how to fight up close. I will win tomorrow. I am fighting for my beloved husband. You are doing no such thing. You're fighting out of jealousy. And so, all the more motivation for me to win. I will not share you with any other woman, even for one night. If that's jealousy, then yes, I am jealous. She looked at him in the dark and kissed his chest. I'm sorry I made a scene. I wouldn't have done that if I didn't love you so. You know that, right? I know, Sig. And on the moons, I will fight this woman, beat her, and send her on her way. Then it'll be done. The sisters will get over it. They will still be friends with House Blanchford. And our son? There will be no situation in which I will ever endanger our son. Right now he is as a seed and will not start sprouting for another month or two. And the sisters agreed not to strike my belly in any case. He will be fine. I've been thinking of a name for the little fellow. Oh, Sig said, glad to change the subject. Tell me. Cable, after Lord Cable, a Blanchford of old. Not bad, but we've a whole year and a half to plan a name, don't we? I have a few planned myself. And with that, we conclude Part 1, Chapter 9, the Sisters Program. So, the Sisterhood of Light, they are the leaders of the League. They have the League Ex Commons, which is sort of like the League Senate, like the government of the League. But it's all pretty much understood that the Senate, the Ex Commons, is beholden to the sisters. Sisters do whatever they want. And one thing they do is programmability. Means they come to various households and demand that the lord of the household participate in their program and seed them. And then they give birth to a girl child, and that's it. And that child is never seen outside of the sisterhood. Her father will never see this daughter that he had. It's a League tradition going back thousands of years. Nobody really thinks about it. They often approach married men, and the wife of these men often just have to put up with it. They just have to go off in a corner and pout. They don't really have anything to say about it. Sig, though, is an animal of a different color. Sig, being an ex-Black Hat, having full Shadow Tech abilities, can fight back and isn't afraid to fight back. And so she did something that's never been done. Challenge a sister to a brawl, basically, No special gifts, no shadow tech, no TK, which the sisters, if they were using TK, could rip Sig to shreds with. The sisters are very strong, and they get where they get this strength from is unknown, but they're extremely strong. Sig isn't anywhere near as strong, but Sig knows how to fight. She knows how to fight up close, so that could be an advantage in her favor. And the sister certainly isn't used to coming to grips with anybody, that's for sure. I mentioned the Bechtel Test at the beginning of this chapter. I argue that if this was an important criteria for my book, which is not, that this chapter would have fulfilled the Bechtel Test. Now, even though these women are talking about one of them having sex with Sig's husband, basically they're talking about a man. At this point in the conversation, the men are almost irrelevant. It even says it in the book that they're kind of an afterthought. This is one woman's will, or a group of women's will, against another. And the man is sort of irrelevant at this point. This is becoming personal very quickly. This is the most intense conversation two women can have. I argue that this conversation fully passes the Bechtel test. Two women, or actually more than two women, it's like four women if you count Sig, having a conversation that doesn't necessarily include men. And that's a ridiculous yardstick. Men comprise half of the planet's population, so you're going to have a conversation without half of the population of the planet. What if they're talking about work and their boss, and their boss is a guy? What then? Conversations about men isn't always romantic. And how many conversations do men have with each other that don't involve a woman of some sort? And also, what if these women were talking about something that's not held in high regard in feminist circles? Like, what if they're talking about hanging curtains or pantyhose or something similar that's considered demeaning these days? What then? Does that disqualify it from the Bechtel test? I don't know, and I really don't care. It's not something I spent sleepless nights trying to work into the story. I really couldn't care less. And the Bechtel herself said this is a joke, but it's held as a yardstick of some sort that's important to somebody. Also, with programmability, that is your key to success in the league. It doesn't really matter how smart you are, how talented you are. Your programmability, it means everything. Now, there's various levels of programmability. Davidge's is the Magni. He's done it several times. Lord Stenstrom of Belmont, the hero of the second series of League of Elder, has the Pell programmability. He's 20 plus times. And the guy's in his early 20s, so the sisters have been coming to him a lot, literally. Then again, there's the untouchables, the Ventinomes, like Lord Aram. His family has had a bad history with the sisters, and he is, by familial history, untouchable. And he, despite being a perfectly affable character, a very talented young man, is stuck in the mailroom. And that's all he can aspire to be, just because a sister didn't deem you worthy to smash. That's a little vulgar, but that's essentially what it is. After the sisters offer Lord Aram a gift for serving Lord Belmont, his gift, he wanted to have programmability with his sister. He wanted to smash his sister, and he got his wish. Anywho, concludes this reading. Next reading, chapter 10, is Come Home, and a lot of the plot elements of this first part of the book are coming to a head. So we know what the sisters want. They want to smash his sister and have programmability with her. And Sig's incensed and won't allow it and has challenged the sister to a fight. That done, we're going to talk more about Lieutenant Kylos, his faithful first officer, and her husband, who is a studious man from Onaris, wants her to come home. He's mentioned it before, but now he really seems serious. And Kai loves spanning the star. She loves being a a long-distance wife. She loves her husband. She's faithful to him, but she likes her life as not a fleet officer, but a first officer in the Stellar Marines, and she really has no intention of going home anytime soon. That gets resolved later on in the Temple of the Exploding Head trilogy, but for now, Kai just loves her job, and she loves spanning the stars, and then occasionally going home to see her husband, whom she genuinely loves. In any event, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.